I wanted to make a Moxon Vise to add on to my new workbench that I built to hold pieces of wood vertically to cut dovetails in it and stuff. And I figured it'd be a good, easy project to film. It's basically 3 pieces of wood. Following plans from the hardware that I got from Benchcrafted. Using hard maple for this because I had some left over and super durable. Just figuring out what parts of the lumber I'm going to use for what piece. There's a face piece, like a backer piece, and then a attachment piece to the bench. So just cutting it down to length before I mill it up. Milling it was pretty easy. The lumber I got was already skip planed on both faces, so just had to put it through the planer to finish that, and then put a clean edge on the jointer. And once that edge was good, I could go over the table saw, rip it to final width. And this I actually did in 2 passes. Hard maple, really, also called rock maple. It's like super heavy and hard on your saw. I think the saw has plenty of power for it. I was too lazy to change to a ripping blade, so I'm just taking 2 passes at it. One at like half height and then one to cut through it. And it worked pretty well. Next step was to use my crosscut sled and cut it to length. So I'm making a clean face on one of the ends, measuring out the final length, and then cutting to that. And then this is the backer piece, pretty much done after this. I wanted to try something on the front piece, which you saw, carving a pattern into it with my CNC machine and then inlaying a metal powder and epoxy. For the pattern, I have this folder of like tessellation and geometric kind of patterns, which I've been digging lately, and found one that I liked and edited it into easel, which runs the CNC machine, and patterned it, or tiled it, I should say. So that's what it should look like. I actually went through a bunch of revisions of this, which you'll see. The final product didn't end up looking like that. I'm new to the CNC machine, so I wanted to practice on something that really didn't matter. Double-sided tape didn't work, but screws definitely did to hold it. And the pattern I ended up using is more denser. Like I kind of shrank the repeating pattern and fit more into it, which I regret, but, and you'll see why. So after it came off the CNC machine, I had to get it ready to pour the metal powder and epoxy. Used a nylon spinning brush to clean up some of the edges. And make like a painter's tape dam. I'm using aluminum metal powder for this. So I just poured it on. Super satisfying to do, actually. And then worked it in with a flat piece of scrap just to kind of try to fill as much of the cutout as I could. And I was hitting it with a heat gun at the same time to kind of make the epoxy and metal powder mixture more pliable and flowy. After that cured for a day, I could run it through my drum sander to take off all the extra epoxy. Super cool after you passed it through a few times. The pattern revealed itself. Cut that to final width. And started to lay out all of the lines for the hardware. Drilled those out, which kind of went okay. Luckily, these didn't have to be pretty. They were either going to be covered by like a rubber backing material or the hardware itself, so I didn't spend too much time here. Then just had to finish it. Sanded it, including the epoxy pattern face. And you can see as I was sanding it, the metal powder and epoxy mixture kind of burnished on the surface and turned the whole piece gray, which I didn't love. So I tried to water pop some of that out, and that worked pretty well as it can on hard maple. And then it was just assembling it. There's only one piece that needed to be glued, this little attachment piece. I had some leftover Rubio monocoat that was getting old, so I figured I'd use that. Let that dry for a day. And then the next day, I could assemble it all. First step was to apply the crubber, it's called, cork and rubber. that came with the hardware that I bought. Just using contact adhesive, letting that dry for about 15 minutes on both surfaces, and then plopping it on and rolling it out to kind of pressurize it. And there's no clamping involved. So once I did that, cut out the holes for the hardware, could assemble everything. And it attaches to my bench with the tail vise. And that would probably be, well, actually, no, it wouldn't be good enough. Then I hammer it, hold fast in, and it's rock solid. So the whole point of the vise is to hold something vertically at a convenient and ergonomic height, and it does that. And as you saw, I'm sure there was a couple mistakes. One was the pattern that was cut out on the CNC. I had tiled the pattern. Two of the tiles overlapped in a not fun way, and the other just kind of went wonky. But that's the whole point of this, is just to practice. And then one of the ends on the epoxy piece that I water popped, I didn't let it dry fully before I finished because I was lazy.